What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you're looking for even more content, check out our members only page. You know, there's some really cool things going on there with some members only live streams, some extra videos, and a little more connected to me. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check out the members only page. If you guys got any other video ideas, please drop them in the comments down below. I read every comment and I'm always looking for more content ideas. So if you guys have any cool ideas for videos, any questions, anything like that, please leave them in the comments down below and we'll do our best to get a video out for that for you guys. But today we're talking about one of the most interesting baits that's hit the scene recently. This guy right here. These big fuzzy style baits. Got a couple different versions here. This one is the Koiki. This one here is the Q-Bomb. But these big fuzzy style baits that, I mean, they almost look like some kind of kid's toy or something like that, but they catch a lot of bass. And really the biggest question that I had with them and a lot of other anglers have asked me about is how to rig it and fish it. And I think I finally figured out the best way to rig and fish these style baits. So I'm gonna walk you through the whole setup and hopefully help you guys use these baits out on the water and answer any of your questions you may have about fishing them. So if you guys are ready, let's jump in and let's rig up a brand new Koiki. Okay, so we got a brand new Koiki here. We're gonna bust him out of the package. You know, this is really unique. They come in such a big package because these tentacles are so small and they can't really be leaned up against anything or they'll bend. So you want that unique action of, I mean, it's basically a ball with arms coming all different directions. So, you know, right off the bat, one thing that I've learned from personal experience, shall we say, you always want to store this bait back on here. If you take him off and you're done fishing him, you want to put him back in the same package that he came. Otherwise, if you lay him flat somewhere, he will kind of bend flat and not be that ball anymore. He'll still look kind of cool in the water, but it's not quite the same as when he's in the original packaging. Now, the other thing I will note about this bait specifically is you don't want to mix him with other types of plastic. So if you put him in a pile of baits along with a Senko, they're going to react and kind of melt together and end up ruining your Koiki. So you don't want to do that either. I'm not sure if the same applies to this style bait, but you know, as far as this rigging technique, it applies to all of these dice style baits or fuzzy style baits that we're about to talk about here. So this guy right here, he's out of the package now. You can see, you know, crazy style bait. And really, like, I don't know what the bass think this thing is. You know, I've heard a couple different theories. You know, I've heard, the only one that actually makes sense to me that I've heard, you know, a couple other people say is this looks like a phytoplankton just blown up. A giant phytoplankton. So a bass sees that when he's an adult bass and it kind of reminds him of when he was a child eating those little tiny phytoplankton, so he eats a bigger one. I mean, the only thing that legitimately makes a little bit of sense. Other than that, I mean, it's just something unique that the bass haven't seen. It almost, to me, kind of looks like a spider in the water when you're kind of working and twitching this bait. But I have no idea what they think it is, but they definitely bite it. And it's something that you want to fish for highly pressured fish. You know, there's really no need to be throwing this bait on your no pressured fish, your fresh fish, your lakes that don't get a lot of pressure, the lakes that the fish bite all the time. There's not really a big need to be throwing this bait, but when you get to those situations where the fish have seen a whole bunch of Senkos or a whole bunch of minnows, a whole bunch of drop shots, you know, throwing something like this can actually trigger some of those fish to bite because it's something they've never seen. So let's dive into the setup and how you want to rig this bait. So I like throwing it on a spinning rod. This is actually a 7'3" medium heavy spinning rod. I throw braid to a fluorocarbon leader. So this is 18-pound Seaguar PEX8 braided line. And then I tie an FG knot to fluorocarbon. Right now I have 10-pound fluorocarbon on here. That's Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon. And then we get down to the hook. So typically if I'm throwing a wacky worm style bait, I'm throwing this hook, but I'm throwing it in a smaller size. So this is the TK 137. And typically if I was throwing a wacky worm, I would go with the number 2 size. But for this little bit bigger, bulkier bait, I go up to the number 1 size. I like that little bit bigger hook for all of this plastic. You know, you want to be able to have some hook gap in order to that hook to kind of go through the plastic. Now, one thing about the Koiki, it's super durable plastic. So you don't really have to worry about this bait coming off very well. But with it being threaded onto that, what is that, a wire that holds it in the box, there's a hole that goes completely through the bait. So I like to take my hook and go through the top. I guess it's the top. There's not really a top and bottom on this. But I will start the hook through that hole and then just kind of pop him out the side just like that. So now you can see that bait is rigged on there. That you still have some hook gap with all that plastic there that, you know, when a fish eats it, you're gonna be able to hook him and that bait's gonna kind of push out of the way and still have some gap. So that's why I go with that little bit bigger hook on there. Okay, so that's how you're gonna wanna rig it. But now the issue with this right here is this plastic floats. So if you threw him out there, he's just gonna float on the water. He's not gonna do anything. You know, you have a little bit of weight from that hook, so he may just sit there kind of like that, but he's not gonna sink at all. He's gonna float, maybe hook down just like that on the surface. So what I found the best way to get this bait to sink is to take a nail weight. And I found you have to use a little bit bigger nail weight than traditional, you know, Nico style nail weights or whatnot. So I've kind of leaned into these screw lock style nail weights. So I guess it's technically not a nail weight if it's a screw in. What do they call it? This is a screw sinker. But basically it is the same thing as a nail weight. You know, it's a little bit of lead that it starts as a nail, but it has that screw on there to help keep it in this plastic, and that, you know, eats up some of the weight, adding a little more profile to it. But this is the 1/8 size, and you know, they make them up to 3/16, I believe, maybe even 1/4 ounce in some brands. So this is a tungsten sinker, but you don't have to use tungsten. I just would prefer it to be a little bit smaller than usual. But you're gonna take that screw lock sinker and go into the bottom. So if the hook went into the top hole, now you're gonna go into the bottom hole and stick that sinker right into there until it hits that screw. And now this is when it gets a little difficult because that plastic is so durable. You know, it may be pretty tough for you to screw him in, but you can definitely screw that sinker in there. You know, you may want to use pliers if need be, but you're able to get that sinker screwed up into your bait. And now you're adding that weight in there and he's actually going to sink. You can fish him down pretty deep, actually. He sinks fairly fast, depending on the size of nail weight you use. Now, you see, I didn't screw him all the way in, but typically I would screw him all the way up until that head is flush against the Koiki, and now you are ready to go. You're ready to fish this bait. You're able to cast him out, you know, whether you're targeting fish on forward-facing sonar or fishing visible structure like boat docks or man-made structure, things like that. He will sink at a pretty good clip, and once he gets to the bottom, you know, what you're wanting to do with this bait is you're wanting to pulse it, because a lot of the action comes from when you pulse it. You know, kind of pop your rod up, and it allows all those tentacles to move, and then he just kind of slowly flutters back down. But that pulsing action is what you're really looking for in this style of bait. So that's what you know, that's kind of your retrieve with this bait is you're going to be shaking with your rod tip. Once he gets to the desired depth that you're looking at, you're shaking and you're wanting him to be dancing around and allow those fish to see that. And really, once they see it, they will come a long way to check this thing out because it's something they haven't seen. And typically, as soon as they see it, they come up and it's just a thump, they just inhale that whole thing because it's so unique and something they haven't seen. So couple questions for you guys. What do you think of the rigging technique, and what do you think the bass think it is? I'm curious what you guys think. Have you thrown it? Do you want to throw it? Are you going to try it? All those, leave them in the comments down below. But I appreciate you guys tuning in for this video, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll see you guys next time.